If you saw a man shedding tears at his brother's funeral, would you believe him? That was the question whispered at the back of St. Dominic's Catholic Cathedral in Gwarinpa, Abuja. The day was heavy with heat, but it was nothing compared to the weight that clung to the air: grief, shock, and suspicion. The church was packed. Politicians, business tycoons, society elites. All had come to mourn the sudden death of engineer Ibuka Okonkwo, a man known not just for his towering reputation in Abuja's real estate sector, but for his devotion to family. His younger brother, Chuka, stood by the casket, head bowed, dressed in flowing black kaftan and dark shades that hid his eyes. But not his tears. They slid down his cheeks like raindrops on polished glass. People said he was grieving deeply. Some believed it, but not everyone. At the far corner of the pews sat Mama Ojeki, their late mother's best friend, who leaned in close to her daughter and whispered, "Real tears don't flow from dry hearts. That boy is crying for himself, not for Ibuka." But the real story, of betrayal, lust, and tragic consequences, had begun 4 months before the funeral, in the compound house they both shared in life camp. Back when Ibuka was still alive. Still smiling. Still trusting. That Thursday evening, Ibuka had returned early from a site inspection. He brought suya wrapped in old newspaper and a bottle of Chapman from Jevanik. As he entered his home, he called out in that deep, hearty voice, "Nkem, I brought your favorite. You've been working too hard." His wife, Adora, emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her wrapper, her face lighting up. She was 32, graceful, and known for her sharp intellect. An editor for a lifestyle magazine in was too. She kissed her husband on the cheek. They looked perfect. But Chuka was watching. From his apartment upstairs, he peered through the blinds. Same time every Thursday. Same laugh. Same hug. And every week, it ate him alive. Because Chuka had fallen in love with his brother's wife. Not the innocent kind of love that sneaks in and leaves quietly. No, his kind was darker. Deliberate. Dangerous. He told himself it was Adora's fault. The way she hugged him too tightly when Ibuka wasn't looking. The way her eyes lingered a little too long when they joked. But deep down he knew. He had crossed the line from admiration to obsession. And now, watching them from above, Chuka whispered to himself, "One day, he won't come home early." That day was coming. But what Chuka didn't know, what none of them knew, was that someone else had been watching him. And that someone had already started recording. The walls in Abuja have ears. And in the Okonkwo family compound, the walls didn't just hear, they watched. 2 flats shared a courtyard. Ibuka and Adora's tastefully furnished duplex below, and Chuka's bachelor-style apartment just above. On the surface, it looked like a tight-knit family setting, but behind the drawn curtains, bitterness festered like spoiled ogbono. And downstairs, just 2 doors away, lived Zainab, the 23-year-old mass comm student on industrial training. Soft-spoken. Barely noticeable. But in a city like Abuja, being invisible was a superpower. Zainab had seen things. That night, as Chuka leaned over the banister, watching Adora and Ibuka exchange laughter, he hadn't noticed the flicker of light in Zainab's window. She had her phone camera aimed steadily at him, zoomed in, capturing the raw hunger in his eyes. She didn't mean to snoop at first. But weeks ago, she had caught something strange. Chuka standing too close to Adora in the compound after Ibuka left for work. A whisper. A hand that lingered on her wrist. She had seen it. And now curiosity had turned into quiet investigation. "This one smells like Walla," she muttered to herself, hitting record. Meanwhile, downstairs in the kitchen, Adora poured her husband a glass of cold water and smiled as he unwrapped the suya. She seemed content. But there was a flicker in her gaze, a kind of restraint, like someone clutching a secret close to the chest. Her hands were too calculated, her laughter a beat too late. Ibuka, ever the trusting man, didn't notice. He was the older brother who had practically raised Chuka after their parents died in a fire in their hometown of Nsukka. He paid for Chuka's education, brought him to Abuja, even gave him a job in his construction firm. But what he didn't know was that his kindness had become a weapon, one pointed directly at his back. That night, as the generator hummed and crickets echoed across Life Camp, Zainab reviewed the clip again. Chuka's face in the shadows, his lips moving silently. Then she paused, rewound, froze the frame. He wasn't just watching. He was saying something, whispering. She leaned in and replayed it with earphones. And then she heard it. "I swear she'll be mine." The next morning, a message arrived on Zainab's phone. "Delete the video. I know what you saw." But she hadn't told anyone. So who sent it? Zainab stared at her phone like it had just hissed at her. The message was simple, 7 words, no name, no emoji, no punctuation. "Delete the video. I know what you saw." Her fingers trembled. She glanced at her window. The curtain was half open. Had someone been watching her too? She rushed to shut it, heart racing, then bolted her door. The one-bedroom studio suddenly felt too small, too exposed. She replayed the video, this time with the lights off. Chuka, standing on the upper balcony, face bathed in the amber wash of a security bulb, muttering those chilling words. "I swear she'll be mine." That wasn't admiration. That was declaration. But what shook Zainab wasn't just the message, it was the timing. She had only watched the clip in full last night. She hadn't shared it, hadn't even saved it to cloud storage. So how did someone already know? She deleted the message from her inbox, but not from her memory. Not yet. If anything happened to her, this would be her leverage. Elsewhere in the compound, Chuka was spiraling. His obsession with Adora had begun to eat him alive. Every smile she gave to Ibuka, every peck on the cheek, every "my husband," made his blood boil. He couldn't stand it anymore. That night, after a tense family dinner of jollof rice and grilled fish, Chuka lingered in the kitchen while Adora cleared plates. Ibuka had stepped out to take a call. "You don't have to keep pretending, you know," Chuka said quietly, drying his hands with a napkin. Adora raised a brow. "Pretending what?" He moved closer, too close. "That you're happy with him." She stiffened. "Watch yourself, Chuka. I see it in your eyes. You only stay with him because you're used to it. But you and me, we have something different. You feel it too." Adora's voice went cold. "You've been drinking. Or worse, daydreaming. Don't bring this rubbish to me again." She turned to leave, but Chuka grabbed her wrist. Just for a second, but it was firm. His voice dropped to a whisper. "You'll see. One day soon you'll thank me." Adora yanked herself free. Her heart pounded, not because she was tempted, but because for a terrifying moment she wondered what he might be capable of. That night, Ibuka opened a brown envelope dropped anonymously at his gate. Inside were 5 photographs. In all of them, Adora and Chuka were standing too close. The compound was still. The distant hum of traffic from Gwarinpa Expressway filtered in like a restless ghost. Ibuka returned home late, weary from a board meeting and a burst pipe at one of his sites in Asakoro. He parked his sleek black Hilux, greeted the gateman absently, and was heading up to his front door when he noticed it. A brown envelope, plain and unmarked, lying squarely at the foot of the door like it had been placed, not dropped. He picked it up slowly, scanning the quiet surroundings. The compound's floodlights flickered once. No footsteps. No shadows. Just Abuja silence. Inside the house, Adora was already asleep upstairs. Her novel lay open on her chest, her breath steady. Ibuka, curious but cautious, took the envelope to his home office, shut the door, and turned on the desk lamp. He opened it. 5 photographs. All glossy. All recent. All damning. The first showed Adora and Chuka sitting on the garden bench, her hand on his knee mid-laugh. The second captured them by the kitchen back door, his palm flat against the wall beside her face, her eyes unreadable. The third, a still from the compound CCTV, paused just as Chuka adjusted her wrapper while she stood barefoot. The last two were zoomed in, grainy but incriminating. One showed Chuka reaching for her wrist. The other, him whispering into her ear, too close for comfort. Ibuka leaned back in his chair, stunned. He stared at the images for a long time. His face didn't contort. He didn't shout. He just sank. All the late nights. The canceled girls' trips. The subtle shift in Adora's laughter. Now he questioned everything. But what hurt him most was the betrayal of Chuka. His only brother. The boy he carried on his back when their house burned down. The boy he paid through Babcock University. The one he brought into his home, into his business, into his life. Ibuka felt something sharp twist in his chest. Not heartbreak. Not yet. Something darker. Upstairs, Adora stirred in her sleep. She had no idea that in the study below, her husband had just uncovered the first tremor of a coming earthquake. At 2:13 a.m., Ibuka forwarded the photos to a contact saved only as Bar. Uchenna, private. Along with one line. If anything happens to me, start with him. 2:13 a.m. The blue glow of the laptop screen cast eerie shadows on Ibuka's face as he typed the message with shaking fingers. The pain hadn't yet turned to rage. It sat in his chest like wet sand, slow and crushing. With one final glance at the photographs, he attached the files and typed. To Bar. Uchenna, private. Subject. In case I don't survive this. If anything happens to me, start with him. He hit send. Barrister Uchenna wasn't just a lawyer. He was a fixer. One of those no-nonsense legal minds with ties to both the courts and the streets. Ibuka had helped fund Uchenna's firm years ago, long before the glitz. Now he was activating a silent alarm no one else knew existed. The next morning, Chuka was all smiles. He strolled into the kitchen with exaggerated cheer, clapping his brother on the back. Guy, you don't look well. You day okay? Ibuka simply nodded, stirring his tea. Didn't sleep much. Adora entered moments later, still in her silk robe, her expression neutral. She greeted them, but her eyes flicked between the two men, Chuka's bright grin and Ibuka's distant stare. Something had shifted. A coldness lingered that wasn't there before. I'll be at the magazine by 10, she said, planting a soft kiss on Ibuka's cheek. He didn't react. She noticed. So did Chuka. He watched his brother with silent calculation, pretending to sip water. Deep down, he sensed something had changed, but he couldn't tell what. Had Adora told him something? Had Zainab? Did someone see? Ibuka stood from the table and looked directly at his brother. His voice was calm, too calm. Chuka, let's go somewhere tonight. Just you and me. For old time's sake. Chuka's brows lifted. Suspicion flickered briefly, then disappeared behind a smile. Anywhere, bro. You know I'd day for you anytime. That night, Zainab received another anonymous message. You're playing with fire. Stay out of it. Attached, a blurry screenshot of her stepping into her compound room. Taken from behind. She gasped. Someone had followed her. They were watching. And now, they wanted her afraid. But Zainab wasn't just afraid. She was recording. Everything. At exactly 9:07 p.m., Chuka followed Ibuka into a quiet, half-finished estate project in Mabushi. A hammer lay near a pile of bricks. And a camera, hidden beneath a toolbox, was already recording. The gate creaked open with a groan that echoed into the unpainted cement walls of Lot 34, one of Ibuka's half-completed real estate projects. No workers, no security, no neighbors. Just the deep shadows of Abuja night and the crickets humming their private chorus in the distant trees. Chuka stepped out of the car, hands in his pockets, his white t-shirt clinging slightly in the humid air. He looked around. Bro, are you sure this is the place? What are we even doing here? No light, no chairs. ABI you want show me secret project. Ibuka closed the door behind him and walked ahead in silence. His leather sandals crunched softly on the gravel. Chuka followed, slightly more cautious now. A floodlight flickered once from the car's headlamp, briefly illuminating a small pile of bricks, and beside it, a steel hammer. Ibuka stopped near the structure's shell of a living room. No windows yet, just block walls and shadows. "Do you trust me, Chuka?" he asked without turning. Chuka laughed lightly. "Of course not. You be my blood." Ibuka turned around slowly. His face was unreadable. "Good. Because I have one question for you. And I need only the truth." Chuka swallowed. "Shoot." Ibuka stepped closer. "Are you sleeping with my wife?" The air froze. Even the crickets went quiet. Chuka blinked. Laughed nervously. "Are you mad? Guy, now wet and be this? Who day fill your head with nonsense?" Ibuka's voice was ice. "Don't lie to me. Because I have photos, videos, and people watching." Chuka's entire posture changed. He stepped back once. His fingers twitched. Then he scoffed, looked away, and muttered, "She came to me, Ibuka. You were never home. What did you expect?" That was it. The admission. Raw. Dirty. Confirmed. Ibuka's chest rose. He closed his eyes. 1,000 thoughts passed behind his furrowed brow. Family. Shame. Blood. Betrayal. Then Chuka stepped forward again, smug now. "I didn't kill you. You handed her to me. You made her lonely." That's when Ibuka moved, not with violence, but with something colder. He turned to the toolbox, flipped it open, tapped a corner, and with that single motion, a tiny red light blinked back to life. A hidden camera. Still rolling. Still recording. Chuka's jaw dropped. "Congratulations," Ibuka said quietly, stepping back into the shadows. "You just confessed on tape." But as Ibuka walked toward his car, he didn't notice the figure moving behind the wall. A shadow, holding something sharp. The next sound was a thud. The sound of the thud echoed into the shell of the unfinished house like a drumbeat of doom. It was wet, solid, and final. Ibuka crumpled instantly. No time to scream, no time to defend. Behind him stood Adora. Her right hand gripped a jagged metal rod, now stained with fresh blood. Her face was pale with terror, but her eyes were wide and clear. Chuka stared in frozen horror. What have you done?" he gasped, stumbling backward. Adora dropped the rod like it burned her. It clanged onto the concrete. "He was going to destroy everything," she whispered, voice shaking. "He recorded you and me. He was going to shame us. Leave us with nothing. You don't understand, Chuka. He said he'd send it to lawyers, my family, your company. He was going to ruin us." Chuka rushed to Ibuka's side, shaking his motionless body. No, Ibuka. Wake up. Wake up, I beg." But there was no response. Only the slow pooling of blood. Then Chuka turned to the camera, still blinking. Still recording. And that's when it hit him. The tape hadn't just caught his confession. It had caught everything. "We have to get rid of it," Adora whispered, panic rising. "Delete the video. Hide the body. Make it look like something else. Like an accident. You can fix this." "Right." Chuka looked at her, truly looked at her for the first time. Not as the woman he wanted, but as the woman who just murdered his brother. "You followed us here." She didn't answer. "How long have you been planning this?" Still silence. In the distance, headlights flickered. A passing car. Then gone. Chuka looked back at Ibuka's body. He made a decision. "We do this my way," he said coldly. "And no one finds out. Ever." He wiped the camera clean and yanked out the SD card. He didn't notice that a second lens, buried deeper in the toolbox, had also been recording, back to cloud storage, just like Ibuka set it up. Cliffhanger for Chapter 8. 2 days later, a grand funeral was held in Maitama. Chuka wore black and gave a tearful speech. Adora sobbed beside him. But in the crowd stood Zainab, holding her phone. And on it, a full copy of the deleted video. The white tent flapped gently in the breeze. The canopy stretched over a sea of mourners, politicians, contractors, family elders, friends from Enugu and Lagos. Security was tight, ushers moved with earpieces, and golden chairs gleamed in the Abuja sun. It was the kind of funeral reserved for men of stature. Ibuka deserved it. His casket, mahogany imported shining, rested at the altar of St. Dominic's Cathedral. A framed portrait stood above it. His warm smile, his full beard, his confident eyes, frozen forever in a single moment. And standing in front of it all was Chuka. Dressed in black senator wear, dark sunglasses hiding his eyes, he held the microphone with shaking hands. His voice trembled as he began to speak. "My brother, my blood, my hero." He paused. The crowd leaned in. "You were more than family. You were my guide, my protector, the man I aspired to become." A soft sniffle. He wiped a tear. "And now you are gone too soon. Rest well, Ibuka." The audience erupted in gentle sobs and applause. Some placed their hands over their hearts. Others nodded, touched by the tribute. But one person didn't clap. One person didn't cry. Zainab. She stood at the far end, shaded by a scarf and sunglasses, holding her phone tight inside her Ankara tote bag. On the screen, paused at 16 minutes and 52 seconds, was the video. Chuka's full confession and Adora's fatal blow. She hadn't planned to come. But when she saw Chuka on channeled TV the night before, giving an interview about family, loss, and legacy, she knew she couldn't keep the truth buried. Not like they had. Beside her stood her cousin, Faisal, a quiet tech head who had helped her recover the second copy from the hidden cloud stream. "Are you sure about this?" he asked under his breath. "I'm not," she whispered back, "but if I don't do something, they'll get away with murder." After the service, mourners lined up to pay respects. Adora, dressed in a designer black lace gown with a black veil covering her face, held her composure. She looked every inch the grieving widow. But Zainab watched closely. Every polite nod, every forced smile, every fake tear. And when Chuka's hand brushed Adora's waist, subtle, almost nothing, Zainab saw it. So did someone else. Across the courtyard, Barrister Uchenna, silent and unnoticed, leaned against a black Prado SUV. He had received the same email Ibuka sent. He had seen the same video. And he had just recognized Zainab. Their eyes met. He nodded once. That night, Zainab received a strange call from a blocked number. A deep voice said only 5 words. "I know what you have." Then the line went dead. The apartment was dark, save for the soft glow of Zainab's laptop. She sat cross-legged on the bed, still in the same wrapper she'd worn since returning from the funeral. Her phone buzzed again, no caller ID. Third time tonight. She stared at the screen, heart hammering. Her thumb hovered. Then she answered. "Hello." There was silence at first. Then a voice, low, male, calm. "I know what you have." Zainab froze. The line went dead before she could respond. She sat there, stunned. Not for what was said, but for what it meant. They knew. Or at least someone did. And they were closing in. She dropped the phone on the bed, stood up, and locked every window, every door. Her mind raced. Was it Chuka? Was it Adora? Or someone else entirely? She thought about deleting the video. But no, if anything happens to me, this is my only protection. Then a second buzz. This time a message. From a private number. "We need to talk. 10 a.m. tomorrow. Federal Secretariat car park. Come alone." Attached was a photo of her from earlier that day, exiting the church. She gasped. Her hands shook. They weren't just watching, they were close. Watching her every move. Maybe even at the funeral. Meanwhile, in an upscale serviced apartment in Maitama, Adora poured a glass of wine with trembling hands. Chuka sat on the couch, pacing frantic. "She was there today," he said. "Zainab." She knows something, I can feel it. Adora took a sip, eyes hard. Then fix it. Chuka turned to her. I don't even know how much she knows. Adora leaned forward. Does it matter? You confessed on camera. I killed your brother with my own hands. If she exposes us, we're both finished. Think. He threw a pillow across the room in frustration. What do you want me to do? Kill her too? Adora didn't flinch. If it comes to that, yes. Silence. It wasn't just a suggestion. It was a command. That same night, Zainab quietly left her room and walked 2 blocks to a small cafe Faisal worked part-time security for. She handed him a flash drive. Upload this to 4 different encrypted clouds. Set it to auto-send to channeled TV, Punch, and the police commissioner if anything happens to me. You understand? Faisal looked up from his laptop, suddenly alert. Z, what have you gotten yourself into? Zainab looked out into the Abuja night. The kind of truth that gets people killed. At 10:04 a.m. the next morning, Zainab stepped out of a Bolt ride into the Federal Secretariat car park and slid into a waiting black SUV. The driver's face turned slowly. It wasn't Chuka. It was Barrister Uchenna. The Abuja sun was already intense, baking the metal hoods of hundreds of parked cars as Zainab stepped out of the Bolt ride. She wore plain jeans, a hoodie, and dark shades, blending in like any other young woman heading to a job she didn't like. But her mind wasn't on work. It was on survival. She scanned the car park, a maze of tinted vehicles and slow-moving security. She spotted the black SUV instantly. The back door opened a crack. Her phone buzzed again. Inside. Now! Zainab inhaled sharply and walked toward it, ignoring the heat in her chest. She slipped into the back seat, and her breath caught. It wasn't Chuka. It wasn't Adora. It was Barrister Uchenna. Mid-50s, dark-skinned, clean-shaven, and sharp-eyed behind gold-rimmed glasses. He wore a navy caftan and held a tablet in his lap. Calm. Controlled. Dangerous. He didn't speak for 10 full seconds. Then, you're brave. But bravery gets people killed in this city. Zainab steadied her voice. How do you know who I am? Uchenna looked at her through the rearview mirror. Because Ibuka prepared for this. And he trusted me. Everything you know, he wanted it to come out. Just not yet. Zainab blinked. So, you saw the video? He nodded. Both copies. The confession. The murder. The cleanup. Her heart skipped. Then why haven't you gone to the police? Uchenna's voice dropped. Because this is Abuja. And in Abuja, truth doesn't walk. It must be escorted. Carefully. Strategically. If we play this wrong, they'll disappear. Into Dubai or behind a senator's handshake. You want justice? Then listen to me. Back in Maitama, Chuka received a call. Blocked number. Zainab's voice. I know what you did. And now so do others. Then she hung up. Chuka slammed the phone down, veins bulging in his neck. Adora looked up from the dining table. She called. He nodded. She's playing games. Adora poured herself another drink. Then maybe, it's time to end them. In the SUV, Uchenna leaned forward. You want this to go viral? We'll give it oxygen. But first, we get one of them to confess on live camera. Public. No room to bury it. Zainab narrowed her eyes. And if they don't? He looked at her, serious. Then we leak the video. And burn the lies down with them. Cliffhanger for Chapter 11. That evening, Chuka got a mysterious envelope delivered to his office. Inside was a still image from the murder video. On the back, someone had written, "We see you. Next, the world will too." Chuka was pacing again. The office smelled of burnt coffee and cold AC. His tie was half loosened, sleeves rolled to the elbow, and his desk littered with building blueprints and half-read contracts. But his mind wasn't on business. It hadn't been in weeks. The receptionist had buzzed him 5 minutes ago. A courier had dropped an envelope. No sender, no signature, just black ink on the front that read, "Private and urgent." Chuka tore it open. Inside, one photo printed cleanly on glossy paper. A still from the footage he thought was gone. Adora's metal rod mid-swing. Ibuka's head just before the impact. His breath caught in his throat. On the back, scribbled in red marker, "We see you. Next the world will too." Chuka staggered into his chair. His hands shook. Sweat gathered on his forehead. Who else had the footage? Who sent this? Zainab? Uchenna? Some blackmailer? Or all of them? The panic crept in like smoke under a locked door. Then his phone buzzed. Instagram tag notification. He opened it. And there it was. A 30-second clip from the murder footage, blurry but unmistakable, had been posted anonymously on a gossip blog page at Ninja Shadows. Captioned, "Abuja power couple exposed. Was this a murder disguised as a funeral? Eyes broken heart. View count, 11,328, and rising fast." Chuka slammed his fist on the desk. Meanwhile, in a cafe in Jabi, Zainab sat quietly, sipping orange Fanta, her eyes fixed on the screen of her tablet. She'd timed the leak perfectly. Late evening, when people were scrolling. Edited short, no faces, just shadows and angles. Enough to spark questions, but not enough to be used in court. Uchenna had approved it. "Just a spark," he'd said. "Now let Abuja ask questions. Then we bring the fire." Her cousin Faisal sat across from her, watching the comments blow up on the video. "Who be this? Nah real murder be that. That looks like that big real estate guy oh. Unadon come again with conspiracy. Wait, is that Ibuka?" The algorithm was working in her favor. At that exact moment, Adora stood frozen in front of her bedroom mirror, her wine glass shattering on the floor. Her phone lay on the bed, open to her group chat of elite Abuja wives. She had been tagged. "Ada, this video. It looks like your late husband's construction site. Are you okay?" Her hands trembled. Chuka burst in seconds later, phone in hand. "It's out. They leaked it. We're done." Adora looked at him, her face drained of color. "What now?" Chuka didn't answer. He didn't have one. The next morning, a journalist arrived at Channeled TV with a full 2-hour raw video file and a sealed document signed by Ibuka Okonkwo himself. Marked, "To be delivered only if I am dead." The receptionist at Channeled TV looked up from her desk as a woman in a simple Ankara blouse and jeans approached, holding a brown leather folder. "I have something for Mr. Tundaransi," she said quietly. "Is it urgent?" the receptionist asked. The woman nodded. "It's from the grave." Within minutes, the envelope was in the hands of Tundaransi, senior investigative reporter. His brow furrowed as he read the label. "To be delivered only if I am dead, yo." He opened it slowly. Inside, a sealed hard drive labeled Mabushi site footage, full confession. A signed statement written on Ibuka's personal letterhead. A notarized copy of his final directive. The statement began, "If this reaches you, then I am no longer among the living. My name is Engr. Ibuka Okonkwo. I was murdered and I have proof. This video contains everything. My brother's betrayal, my wife's hand in my death, and the confession that cost me my life. I ask that this be aired. Let my story be a warning. Not every enemy lives outside your house." Tund read the final line aloud, breath-catching. "Justice does not die with the dead." By noon, the newsroom was a hive of whispers and sharpened purpose. The footage had been verified. Faces matched. Timeline aligned. And the signature? Authentic. No doubt. They had a murder. On tape. Backed by the victim. The editor gave the go-ahead. We dropped the teaser at 6. The full story airs tonight at 9. Hashtag Justice for Ibuka was already trending by 5 p.m. Elsewhere, Chuka sat alone in his car, parked under an abandoned bridge off Baynex Junction. His eyes were bloodshot, his phone filled with missed calls. The internet had exploded. His office had been vandalized. Clients were backing out of deals. His name was now synonymous with betrayal and disgrace. And Adora? Gone. She had vanished from the apartment hours ago. No message, no trace. Rumors were she had boarded a night flight to Ghana. But others claimed she never made it to the airport. Some said she fled. Others said she was running from Chuka. As the sun set, the nation tuned in. The full story aired on Channel TV's Prime Evening News. Chuka's confession. Adora's strike. The hidden camera reveal. Ibuka's written testimony. People cried. Others raged. Phones rang across police departments. Protests began forming online. Ibuka had become a martyr. A brother wronged. A man who saw his end and planned for it. 48 hours later, a body was found in a shallow ditch off Airport Road. The face had been beaten beyond recognition, but in one hand was a wedding ring. Engraved inside, Adora and Ibuka. Forever. The early morning haze hung thick over the outskirts of Abuja's Airport Road. A runner, clad in neon shorts and headphones, stumbled to a halt near a drainage ditch. His eyes widened in horror. There, lying motionless in the tall weeds, was a body, twisted, face bloodied beyond recognition, shirt ripped, shoes missing. One arm stretched outward. In the hand a ring. The police arrived quickly. Yellow tape went up. Cameras flashed. But what stunned the investigators wasn't the brutal state of the body. It was what the corpse held on to. A gold wedding band. Engraved on the inside. Adora and Ibuka. Forever. The news spread like wildfire. Was it Adora's body? Had she been running and caught? Or was this another twist in a story already drowning in betrayal and blood? Forensics would take time. But one thing was clear. Someone had wanted her silenced. Back at the Channel TV studio, Zainab watched the breaking news with trembling hands. She had tried to stay quiet after the broadcast, but this new death, if it was Adora, changed everything. Faisal, eyes locked on the TV, whispered, "Do you think Chuka did it?" She didn't answer immediately, because in her inbox was a new message, sent from a private server. No subject. Inside was just a photo. Chuka, in the back seat of a car, speaking to a man in a face cap, exchanging a heavy brown envelope. No timestamp. No location. Just one caption. She was never meant to make it out. Chuka, meanwhile, was in hiding. He'd left his apartment 2 nights ago. His lawyer had dropped him. His accounts were being investigated. His name was now tabloid poison. But worst of all, he hadn't heard from Adora. And no one had identified the body. He lit a cigarette with shaking hands. Then tossed it. He didn't even smoke before all this. He scrolled Twitter. Justice for Ibuka. Authorities confirm unknown female found on Airport Road. Rumors link it to the Okonkwo scandal. He blinked. Read it again. His mouth went dry. Then his phone rang. No ID. He answered. A woman's voice. "You thought you buried me? You should have made sure I was dead." Click. The body in the ditch? It wasn't Adora. She was still alive. And now she was ready to talk. Adora pulled the scarf tighter around her face as the Kiki trundled along a dusty, unfamiliar road on the outskirts of Saleja. Her face was pale, cut at the lip, bruised on one cheek, but her eyes were sharp again. Not the soft, sad widow on channeled TV. Not the panicked killer in Mabushi. Now she was awake. She had faked her escape. Staged the run to Ghana. Ditched her phone in a taxi. Left her luggage at the airport. She'd watched them panic, watched the headlines explode, watched Chuka spiral. But she hadn't predicted one thing. They would try to silence her anyway. The body in the ditch wasn't random. It was her stand-in, her cousin's maid, whose ID had been stolen 2 days before. Same height, same scarf, same ring. It was supposed to make the world stop looking for her. That was their mistake. In a dim room above a mechanic shop, Adora met with a woman called Ngozi, a former investigative journalist now running an underground network for abused women and political whistleblowers. Ngozi poured her tea and slid a folder across the table. Inside, copies of the full video court-ready affidavits, photos of Chuka handing off envelopes to the alleged hitman. "Are you ready to expose him?" Ngozi asked. Adora nodded, voice steady. "Not just him. Myself too." Ngozi raised an eyebrow. "You want to confess?" "Yes. On camera. No hiding. If I go down, fine. But he won't walk away clean. Not after everything." That evening, as Abuja's skyline glittered in denial of the rot beneath it, Zainab received another encrypted link in her inbox. From an anonymous sender. She clicked it. A live video began. Adora. On screen. No makeup. No edits. Just truth. "My name is Adora Okonkwo, and I have a confession to make. I was involved in the death of my husband. But I wasn't the only one. There is more. Much more." The comments exploded. Hashtag Adora speaks. Hashtag Ibuka was right. Hashtag Chuka the devil. At the exact same moment, in a dusty one-bedroom flat in Mararaba, Chuka dropped his phone in shock. Adora wasn't dead. She was talking, and she was about to bury him for good. As Adora spoke live to millions, police stormed Chuka's hideout, armed with an arrest warrant. He tried to run, but someone was waiting. Zainab, with a camera. And a final question. "How does it feel to cry at a funeral you caused?" The metal door burst open with a thunderous clang. 6 police officers, led by plainclothes detectives, swarmed into the small flat like a tactical wave. One went for the power switch. Another blocked the back exit. Flashlights cut through the shadows like knives. The smell of sweat, fear, and guilt was thick in the air. In the center of it all, Chuka stood frozen, barefoot, unshaven, in a faded Arsenal jersey and boxers, holding the same phone that had just live-streamed Adora's worldwide confession. "Mr. Chuka Okonkwo," the lead detective said coldly, "you are under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and accessory to murder." As the cuffs clicked around his wrists, Chuka's mouth opened to speak, but the officers weren't listening anymore. Justice had no time for the tears of liars. Then, from the hallway, another figure stepped in. Zainab. She was calm. Her scarf wrapped tight, her phone camera rolling, the red rec light glowing steadily in the gloom. She raised the phone. The camera lens stared directly into Chuka's weary, sunken eyes. She asked one simple question. "How does it feel to cry at a funeral that you caused?" Chuka's lips trembled. His shoulders sagged. But for once, he had no words. 2 weeks later. Channeled TV special report. Headline: Ibuka's legacy, the house that lies couldn't finish. Adora had turned state witness in exchange for a reduced sentence. Chuka faced a double-digit prison term for conspiracy and tampering with evidence. The full footage had aired, unedited. The video had crossed 15 million views. Ibuka's will revealed that all his real estate shares had been transferred to a scholarship fund for orphaned children. And Zainab? She was invited as a guest speaker on national TV. When asked why she risked so much to reveal the truth, she answered, "Because silence protects the guilty. And I wasn't born to stay silent." Final scene. A quiet grave at Gudu Cemetery. Fresh flowers. A polished headstone. Ibuka Okonkwo's son. Brother. Betrayed. But not forgotten. Zainab stood alone, hands folded. Then a voice behind her. "He was lucky to have you." It was Barrister Uchenna, stepping forward with quiet dignity. "They all played their part in destroying him. But you? You played yours in raising him back up." Zainab smiled faintly. "The truth always comes back, Barrister. Even if it has to walk through fire to get here."